Okay, we'll move on to the next story. I'm excited about this story. It's got video with it. I don't know how familiar you are with the Max Headroom signal hijacking in 1987.
I know a bit about it, yeah.
We're going to talk about that tonight. A lot of people consider this to be really scary. To me, it's almost humorous, but I can see where it's pretty freaky too, though.
Oh, yeah.
And this is a well-known thing, but there's got to be people watching this right now that have not heard of this, and I'm excited to share that with them. Sound good? Okay, so yeah, this is the Max Headroom signal hijacking. On the night of November 22nd, 1987, the television signals of two stations in Chicago, Illinois were hijacked, briefly sending a pirate broadcast of an unidentified person wearing a Max Headroom mask and costume to thousands of home viewers. So just to go a little bit of a backstory here on who Max Headroom is. He's a fictional character that they really got going in the 80s. I think it was actually played by an actor, but this is advertised as like the first computer-generated TV host, TV presenter. It was clearly just an actor. I think they got makeup on him and other prosthetic things and contact lenses, and I think the way they shot with the camera, they tried to make it look like this was an AI-generated person. The lighting looked weird, right? And he would have this weird, the background would be moving, these like straight bars would be moving behind him. And he actually caught on, I think it started as like, he had like a television series and stuff. He caught on to the point where I believe major companies were using him, like Coca-Cola, for their advertisements, things like that. He was well known, put it that way. This is not the first time this had happened with broadcast television. There was a real notable event that happened the year before with HBO, where somebody had hijacked the HBO signal and broadcasted a message essentially complaining about the price jack, and then I don't want to mess up the terminology, but HBO basically made it where you weren't going to see it for free anymore. They would mess with the image. I think they called it scrambled it. So this wasn't a new thing that happened, but this is definitely like probably the most notable one. Obviously, there's stories that go back to like War of the Worlds playing on radio and stuff like that. But this one is pretty creepy, so we'll get into it here. Okay, so yeah, like I said, this was the night of November 22nd, 1987. This takes place in Chicago, Illinois. The first hijacking of the airwave took place at 9:14 p.m. during a sports segment on WGN's TV's The 9 o'clock news. Home viewer screens went black for about 15 seconds before footage of a person wearing a Max Headroom mask and sunglasses is displayed. The individual rocks erratically in front of the rotating metal panel behind him. You could tell it's somebody in a Max Headroom costume, but they're trying to mimic this background that's moving around like we talked about. It was just a bunch of buzzing sounds on this first one. It is as if the audio did not go through, so it was strange. This lasted about 20 seconds and was cut off when the engineers that were on shift then changed the frequency of the signal, linking the broadcast studio to the transmitter on top of the John Hancock Center. I do have a video to share of this first event when they were able to take over this particular news channel. So let me pull it up here.
Fortunate enough, we scored. Dumps it over the middle, right open the cut. Cutting left to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown!
McMahon and McKinnon, 14-0 Bears. Well, if you're wondering what's happened, so am I. Actually, the computer that we have running our news from time to time took off and went wild. So what we're going to do is start over from the top of the Bears and tell you once again about the 30-10 victory they had over Detroit today out at Soldier Field.
So yeah, this first instance goes by, and the news crew on shift actually acknowledges it, right? They don't know what happened. Back then, funky things would happen sometimes, like what you're trying to display would get scrambled or whatever. It'd get stuck on the screen. So they're not really sure what happened at this point in time. Like I said, there's no audio. It's just a brief interruption. I think, how long did I say? Maybe 15 seconds? I think the whole thing went on 20 seconds in total. So just weird. 9:14 at night is a primetime television time, right? I mean, and they kind of blew it off and said it was the computer doing funky things, which I guess back then probably people didn't really know as much about computers either, right? So they're just like, hey, this is just the computer acting funky, right? Moving on later in the night, this is at about 11:20 p.m., and that is the same night. However, this is a different station. The first one was WGN TV at 11:20 p.m. on WTTW. It's essentially the local signal for the PBS station. It was interrupted during Doctor Who. It was a horror of Feng Rock, which I'm not familiar with that, but the culprit of this hijacking of the airwave was the same. It was the Max Headroom impersonator. And this time, audio actually came through. Let's just go ahead and share that clip before we discuss it. This is where things get freaky.
You should talk often with the old ones of your tribe. That is the only way to learn.
I'll get you a hot drink, miss.
I've seen some dry clothes.
I just made a giant masterpiece for all the greatest world newspaper nerds. My brother is wearing the other one. But it's naughty. What you done for my time?
As far as I can tell, a massive electric shock. He died instantly.
Yeah, freaky. So we'll go on with the description of the events here. The masked figure made a comment about nerds, calling WGN sportscaster Chuck Swirsky a freaking liberal, held up a can of Pepsi while saying, "Catch the wave." That's a slogan from the campaign for Coca-Cola that we were talking about, the Max Headroom character was doing. And held up the middle finger inside what appears to be a hollowed-out sex toy. The figure then ran through a series of quick comments and in song snippets with exciting noises and explanations. Max sang the phrase, "Your love is fading," hummed part of the theme song for the 1959 animated series Clutch Cargo, and he then said, "I still see the X." This was a reference to the last episode of that show. He also started rambling randomly about the files and explained that he had made a giant masterpiece for the greatest world newspaper nerds. WGN's call letters actually stood for World's Greatest Newspaper. Could have just mixed it up there. And he was describing sharing dirty gloves with his brother. After a crude video edit the person had mostly off-screen at this point, he had his partially exposed buttocks visible from the side with a female figure wearing a French-made costume, what appears to be a mask. This is on the right side of the frame. She is spanking him with a fly swatter, and he was holding the mask out there for a second before that and screaming, "Oh no, they're coming. Make it stop." The female, like I said, figure was spanking him. Fly swatter. The image faded into static. Then viewers were returned to the Doctor Who broadcast. This is a total interruption about 90 seconds. Technicians at the stations could not counteract the takeover because there were no engineers on duty when this happened. So this was the Sears Tower, now known as Willis Tower, I guess, where the station's broadcast tower is located. According to the station spokesperson, technicians monitoring the transmission from the headquarters attempted to take countermeasures but couldn't. The director recalled that as the content got weirder, we got increasingly stressed out about our inability to do anything. The pirate broadcast actually ended because the pirates transmitting it ended it. by the time the people really got into looking what was going on, it was already over with. They received a bunch of phone calls about this. Then some experts, FCC gets involved and stuff, and the broadcast intrusion was archived by sending a more powerful microwave transmission to the station's broadcast towers than the stations were sending themselves, triggering a capture effect. This was a difficult task in 1987, but was possible before American television stations switched from analog to digital signals in 2009. But even so, we've seen things happen with the digital signals. It's just not quite as easy to do, I guess. Experts have said that this stunt required extensive technical expertise and a significant amount of transmitting power, and that the pirate broadcast likely originated from in the line of sight of both station broadcast towers. No one has ever claimed responsibility for this. There's a lot of speculation out there about the identity of this Max person. Really nothing solid has ever come out of this. People have said it's former employees upset with the station. People have tried to connect it to various other people. Nothing's ever come of it. Soon after the investigation, the FCC official quoted it in news reporting that perpetrators would face a maximum fine of $10,000 and up to a year in prison. However, the 5-year statute of limitation is done long past. No one's ever been identified in the case of who did this.
I love that so much. I guess it's crazy and messed up, right? But I loved how like crazy early television, 80s television was, how like there's no security at all. You just needed a lot of electrical power and an antenna, and you could blow out their transmission and then take it over.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I wonder what happened where it didn't really work the first time. Somebody was there working, first of all. They're able to counter it, but it's like the audio didn't go through. I guess it must be when you're intercepting a signal, maybe it varies.
I think they had just enough power to get on the screen, but not enough to blow out their audio entirely.
Do you think this is scary to some people watching at home?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. This is a crazy person doing this. I mean, obviously, whoever did it is slightly unhinged. And so you have a person that it's like the Joker in Batman. He takes over the airwaves at one point, and he does a broadcast like this in the Michael Keaton Batman, I think, even. So, yeah, this is something a crazy person would do. And if they actually applied themselves, they could be a terrifying person.
Yeah, we got a lot of comments saying things like that. Unstable person. Then people are asking, why wouldn't they come forward now, right? Like, it's all done. They can't get in trouble for it. Nobody ever claimed responsibility for it, though. It seems like something you'd be like, oh, I did that.
You know what's crazy? As I'm sure, besides the people who did it, I'm sure that there are a lot of people in deeper pockets of the internet who know who did it. And I don't understand why no one's come forward. That is super weird, because there's more than just the people who were there who know, guaranteed. They probably told somebody at some point.
A lot of people are so sure it's an inside job. I'm not so sure.
Yeah. So like you mentioned early on, the HBO thing, which happened like the year before or something like that.
Yeah.
So that was a guy who did run like another station, and he just hijacked. Yeah, he hijacked their signal to everything like that. So like these people probably had access to some stuff, and they just decided to use it for something crazy. Like they weren't like part of WGN, or it was WGN. Is that right?
The first one is WGN. The second was WTTW.
Okay, yeah. So I don't believe they were affiliated with either of those two stations, but they were definitely people who worked at some other station because they knew at least the broadcasting power.
So when I was researching the HBO the incident that happened the year before, they were talking about how there for a while they were like both amping up their power to see who could take over the frequency, but HBO actually backed off because they were worried that it would blow their blow a transmitter. I don't really know how to describe it. They're worried that it would damage their satellite if they continue to up their power. So that's why, that's why they like let it go.
Yeah, it is really crazy. And like I said, that's something I really like about that era of TV and radio and stuff like that. Radio's still the same way. You can build a little FM transmitter and then pump in a lot of electricity, and you'll overpower the local FM radio.
The guy that did HBO got like a 1-year probation and his ham radio license taken away for a year or something like that.
That sounds about right. Yeah. See, it's weird. Like these fines and like everything seems a little low.
But
You
but because of the HBO thing, they made it a federal offense.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. So that's why the person didn't come forward then.
Yeah.
But now, so long later, it's like, why would you not do that? Let's talk about the obscene gestures he was doing, though, Luke.
That was gross. Like, it's a gross thing to do. It's a gross person to do that. And like, because you don't know who's going to be watching this. Granted, this was at like 11 o'clock at night, but
11:20.
But this was still a PBS station, like public broadcasting station.
They interviewed a couple kids. They interviewed like a bunch of different people. Like I saw news reports. Some people were like, it was funny. Some people were basically called them terrorists. Some people were, kids were saying they were scared. There was like a bunch of different, it was a mixed reaction, but some people were legitimately freaked out.
So here's the thing. These people are deliberately doing weird, gross stuff like that when they know there's a good chance that a kid is going to be on the other side of that. And so, yeah, that's a terrifyingly gross thing to do. It's a weird thing to do. I just think it's funny that it was even possible to be done. Like, and it's, technology has changed so much that, like you said, it can still technically be done in some instances, but it's a lot harder than simply pumping a lot of power in.
I saw one where this had happened in the last 15 years, I believe. Oh, where was it? I don't know if it was Montana. I don't know. But somebody was able to hijack like the emergency system. So it came on like public service, like emergency service announcement. And they said they basically said the dead was coming back to alive. The person got caught and got in trouble. But so it's still possible, but it definitely seems like when it was analog, it was kind of like a free for all.
Yeah, I remember when that happened, actually. I don't remember the year, obviously, but I remember hearing about it. That reminds me of another story in Hawaii when it wasn't someone hijacked the emergency broadcast, but someone made a mistake with the emergency broadcast, and they broadcasted that a nuke was on the way.
Wow.
And this happened, I think, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. It wasn't very long ago now. And so a lot of people believed they were going to die. So it caused about it was like 15, 20 minutes of just pure chaos. I had to look that up.
Someone said Doctor Who got a little more PG.
Yeah.
PG-13 maybe.
PG-13.
I had to blur out the buttocks.
Yeah, like I've seen the unblurred video at one point, so I knew you did.
I fear it's more appropriate. It's not really.
Yeah, definitely.
You get the point. You get the point. I mean,
it's gross. It's weird. Why the hell did you do that?
Definitely several people involved, though. There's a person filming it, just twisting the camera, trying to create this effect. You got a person in a French maid outfit, so there's not just one person behind it.
Yeah, and the French maid was definitely a female person. Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, people were really, you could basically come to the conclusion this wasn't live, it was recorded because of the cut in the video.
Yeah.
I guess the scary part is, what was the purpose? Was there a message they were trying to give, or because nobody really got it? People have their opinion on things, but
I think it was a narcissistic sociopath kind of thing. Like they were just like, hey, we could do this. These people are stupid. We can just do this ourselves and mess with everybody. And they just
you think they knew no one was working to counter it?
I think so, yeah. And I think that they knew, well, they probably guessed that nobody was going to be there. And they probably figured, well, we got enough juice. We can pull this off and we'll be legends because everyone's going to be talking about us for the next 30 years.
People still are. Do you think the scary part is that this could be done, though? Like, what else could happen?
Yeah, because, they could have done something even more malicious if they wanted to. Yeah, it showed a definite flaw in the system, and all you needed was power, and you could do whatever you wanted.
You may never know. It's like Cooper, the airplane guy. We'll never know,
Yeah, it's exactly like that.
He may be a future story right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Good one. I enjoyed that one.
I did too. I didn't know that's what you were going to go do, and I'm really excited about it. I'm glad that one was the one we did.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?